Yeah. Wake up with coffee and sports. Sunrise glow, listen coast to coast. A flow like you know.
Offensively, who made them? Oh, Patrick Mahomes.
Sideline to sideline with plays to show. This network's got the spark.
When you put up 300 yards rushing against someone, that you got your butt whooped.
I feel like I would have liked to see Oregon Ohio State in the semis, not the quarters. So I think some reseeding is probably where I would change. But
they're out of their mind. They're going to do this 3 quarterbacks in a row.
Here's the crazy.
I just can't take it.
Birds keep flying high, fans cheering loud, and one podcast moving through the crowd. Needy boys brawling, no holds barred loud. This wire life never in doubt. Tune into the vibe.
That's my bold prediction for the show. Devin Booker, in the next 3 years, he will be a Houston Rocket.
Because I still think Seth is still at the top of his game. I do. I think he's right there. Who knows? Maybe. Not this year, but one time soon. Why wouldn't we potentially see Seth and Roman? You know what I mean?
Tune in the vibe. Morning reps, good centers. Got me on the mic now, let's spill the tea. Talking courtside dreams from history. Legends on the blacktop now and then. From Wilt to Steph, we hit it again. Moment chimes in, let's go deep. Young bloods rising, can't skip a beat. Puppy prospects with fire in their eyes. Draft night suckers and hoop dream highs. Wire to wire, bring the heat. Podcast magic can't be beat. Do better, but roll better. We're hoop heads, trendsetters.
Hey, what is poppin', y'all? It is your boy, Guard-E3, and welcome to the And One podcast on this lovely Friday morning. Get your weekend started off right. And, of course, joining me just like every week, he is the greatest co-host of all time. He is Mo Better. How you doing, Mo?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hey, good afternoon. Let's get into it. Let's talk some hoops.
Yeah, I'll say, you know how it is. You know, we got to start this out. Every time we start this out, we always start out with an underrated player of the week. So, Mo, who's your underrated player of the week this week? So like I said, if anybody's know, every week we start out with an underrated player of the week just for some fun, show some love to some guys who are underappreciated. So you got a underrated player of the week for us, Mo?
I think if I was going to choose somebody underrated, I'm going to go Watson, formerly of the Denver Nuggets, now of the Cleveland Cavaliers, just got traded to the Cavs. I think Peyton Watson, the trade to Cleveland will be viewed as underrated because I do think that Peyton Watson can help elevate the Cavaliers, especially defensively. I think they get better. I think Evan Mobley with Peyton Watson, both are going to be a better basketball team. I'm not saying they're going to win a title, but I think Peyton Watson is going to have a significant impact on both ends of the floor for the Cavs.
No, absolutely. Hey, what's up, Key? I see you. I say, yeah, no, I completely agree. I do enjoy them getting younger and more athletic at the wing position. I do think it's kind of crazy to try to run back the same core for a third time. not escaping the second round in either of your first two attempts. Oh no, wait, they did run to the conference finals this past year, didn't they? But yeah, no, I don't know. It just feels like that. Just feels like that probably is going to have the similar results of the last couple of years. But I will say I do like the idea of getting younger and more athletic on the wing. $22 million a year, I don't think is a terrible amount for Peyton Watson. So I like the sign and trade for them.
Yeah,
So,
look, it's a good move. I still think, I guess, in the big picture, they're kind of in a purgatory, because obviously they signed Peyton Watson. That's big. They bring James Harden back. That's not surprising. And we always talk a lot about guys who have great agents. James Harden might have one of the greatest agents of all time. Like Kirk Cousins clearly has one of the greatest sports agents in the history of sports. All the money that his agent has gotten him. But I would argue that James Harden's agent is pretty damn good, probably even better. James Harden is, in my opinion, can be effective still, but he's well past his prime. He's 30, what are you, 36, 37? Like, we're living in the times when a 37-year-old who's on the other side of his prime can get almost $100 million contract. And this isn't, and all 37-year-olds aren't the same, right? Because obviously LeBron at 37, you'd be like, oh my God, LeBron at 37. Steph at 37, oh my God, Steph at 37. Even Kawhi, who's I think 35, 36. But I think they're all playing at a higher level than James Harden. And it goes without saying, they're all more proven in the postseason than James Harden. I can tell you what's going to happen. James Harden is going to have a terrific regular season. He's probably going to have all-star caliber numbers. It wouldn't shock me if he even made the all-star team. And the Cavs are going to win well over 50 games. And then the playoffs are going to come. And James Harden will look like a lesser version of himself, like he always does in the playoffs. And the Cavaliers are going to come up short, not exclusively because of James Harden. I think they're going to come up short because I just think their roster construction as a whole, not just James Harden, but as a whole, is very flawed.
I swear, James Harden being on that roster has saved Donovan Mitchell's life, because now everybody looks at the Cavs' playoff success failures and go, that's on James Harden. He's a career playoff choker. I'm like, he's not even supposed to be the best player or second best player on this team, theoretically. Like you brought him in to make Mobley's life easier and like play off Donovan Mitchell. Like, that's why I found last year so funny, because everybody immediately went to Harden. I'm like, are you ignoring the elephant in the room? Like, Donovan Mitchell's right there too, and he played arguably even worse than James Harden. So,
facts.
I'd say, yeah, that. Like, I swear, the James Harden trade just absolutely saved Donovan Mitchell's PR to a whole lot of problems. By the way, my fun underrated player of the week this week, he's a backup point guard, but, I think all backup point guards deserve love, especially when you stick around the league like this guy did. Give me Patty Mills of the San Antonio Spurs. Just an absolutely key piece off that bench for years, and he was so good.
Oh, that's a good one.
Now,
I like that choice a lot. Patty Mills, winning player, so many big shots he made. You know what I love about Patty Mills is, for whatever reason, when he's in international play, suddenly Patty Mills becomes Trae Young. You ever watch Patty Mills in international play when he's playing against the U.S.? Suddenly you're like, nobody can guard Patty Mills. It's Patty Mills. It's weird. He's so much better when he's in international play. It's like he's been unleashed or something. Like, Patty Mills becomes like he becomes like a high level scoring point guard in international play. I just think that's impressive. When he represents his country, he takes it to a whole another level. I think Patty Mills is one of the more underrated, terrific role players in NBA history.
No, absolutely. What's good, Kurum? So, great question. I saw a post yesterday, and if you want to drop the worst coach you've seen in your team's franchise, that would be awesome. because the post I saw was a friend of ours, the sports judge, asking who was the worst coach in Lakers history. And I think that's an interesting and fun question to talk about. But hey, you know what? If you want to give me the worst coach in Lakers history or the worst coach in your own team's history, I don't think I need to tell you mine. Mine is easily Glenn Rivers, in my opinion. But yeah, no. Like I said, the question was, who is the worst coach
I knew
in
that was
Los Angeles
coming.
Lakers history? Like, okay, like for me, the reason why he takes the cake over we've had some really bad coaches. Like we've had like Larry Drew in 2013 led us to 15 wins, but it really feels like at the end of the day, it was expectations that killed that. Like in 2013, I knew we were going to suck. So like we got a bad coach, but it's whatever. A good coach would takes us to 20 wins instead of 15. Like when you have real expectations and you underperform to the extent that Rivers did, to me, that's when I'm just like, yeah, that had to be the worst coaching job in ever, because there were real expectations and you didn't even hit the bare minimum of them. But like, yeah, Mo, I thought this would be a fun question to ask you. Who do you think was the worst coach in Lakers history?
We've had our share, but I think the one that stands out to most, because I just thought he never should have been hired, it's Kurt Rambis. Kurt Rambis' tenure with the Lakers as the head coach was horrible. It was just terrible. It was like, I know people can point to Byron Scott. Byron Scott was bad. But here's the thing, spoiler alert, everybody that knew when Scott got hired, and they looked at, I want you to remember that Laker roster. Remember names like Robert Sacre and Tyreek Black and people like that. That roster said not making the playoffs. And it was a terrible roster. But Rambis by far was the worst coach. Just should never. That was one of those, because we're friends with Jeannie or whatever, and she hit him up. He didn't deserve that. I get it that he's part of the organization, and he's certainly a well-known role player on championship teams. That doesn't mean it translated into, a great coach, because it didn't. And it's not a fluke. Remember, I believe Kurt Rambis he had another opportunity. I believe, Brett, correct me if I'm wrong, with the Timberwolves, and he stunk there too.
And he got a third opportunity with the New York Knicks, and he was really bad there too.
My God.
The fact that the Timberwolves watched that and like willingly said,
right,
yeah, come be our head coach. And then the Knicks watched those two and were like, yeah, we needed a head coach for a year. Like, come be our head coach. Like, oh. Actually, I think with the Knicks, he was the assistant, and then the head coach got fired, so they just kind of threw in Rambis, which I wouldn't even have done that. Talk about nuking the development of your young guys, but let's see. Kurum says, as a Thunder fan, maybe Billy Donovan or Scott Brooks. They were good. Okay. As a Knicks fan, David Fizdale. Ooh. Okay, yeah, David Fizdale is always a fun pick for that one.
Oh, that's a good one. I would say Billy Donovan. Like, look, when they were under Scott Brooks, that you would have to say that was their heyday. They had their most team success. Remember when Billy Donovan became coach? That was right about the time when it became Russ's team, and it was just you remember that. Like Billy Donovan and Russ, they can say they had a good relationship, but the relationship was, Billy Donovan would say, this is what we're doing. And then Russ goes, well, that's what you're doing. This is what I'm doing. Like that. He didn't coach Russell Westbrook. He pretty much let Russell Westbrook do whatever he wanted. I just don't think Billy Donovan was a good, and he's still not. He's not a good NBA coach. He had all that success in college, and it seemed like that's where he left his success. He had a couple of winning teams because Russell Westbrook had amazing seasons and kind of like overachieved with OKC. I wouldn't think Billy Donovan's a bad coach. He's got to be, if he's not their worst coach, he must be next to the worst coach. That's how bad a coach he was. And again, your overall resume tells us what you are. How well has Chicago done since Donovan has been there? I rest my case.
Say Billy Donovan is really good at one specific skill as a coach, which I always find funny. He's one of the better like play callers after a timeout. Great out of bounds play drawer. It's kind of funny. But yeah, it really feels like with Billy, he's just more of like a personality coach. Like I don't doubt like everybody who works with him seems to love him, but it hasn't translated to any massive success. But like the players do love him. I just feel like with Billy Donovan, he feels like the perfect assistant coach where he comes in, has a great relationship with the players, keeps them all happy, and let somebody else draw up the X's and O's. Or just, college probably still works out for Billy. But yeah, I don't think he's really just a great NBA head coach, but hey, I think he's a phenomenal assistant or a college coach. Mo, what about Luke Walton? Kerm, love that.
You don't have to sell me on how bad Luke was. I still think Rambis was worse. Like we've had bad coaches. Don't get me wrong. Like the Darvin Ham experiment was really quick. Luke was not very good. Like Luke was bad. We've had bad coaches. I just think Kurt Rambis was the worst of the bunch. Look, Magic wasn't good when he coached. He didn't coach long enough for me to like really judge him in that way. I think Magic, he might have hit double digits and he bailed. But he probably had a higher winning percentage than Rambis did.
That's the big thing, because I thought people under that post that I got this idea from saying Magic Johnson. I don't think you can count Magic. He only coached 16 games for the Lakers, so like he doesn't have the sample size as his other coach. Kyle, who's the worst coach that you've had the displeasure of watching for Boston? This should be a good one, because actually Boston normally just has really solid coaches, at least. I know they've had some stinkers, but they normally have some really solid coaches.
Did Rick Pitino ever coach the Celtics? I know he coached the Knicks, didn't he? He coached the Knicks.
I think he did.
I don't think. If he did, they probably weren't that good.
I would say, Kyle said he did. You know what? Also, I kind of find funny. Mo, we were talking about the Peyton Watson trade earlier. Like, where does Denver even go from here? And like the reason I ask that is they're almost starting to look like a very similar iteration of the Bucks where they're at with late stage Giannis, where Kyle says the Rick Pitino days were the dark days. But yeah, you're almost starting to look at the Bucks where it's like, hey, your core is aging, you're getting older. Aaron Gordon has hamstring issues that keep popping up again and again. Like, your assets to improve are running out. You just lost another key piece, your young athletic wing. It just feels like that the Nuggets themselves, they have Jokic, who is going to win them a lot of games by himself, but they're running very dangerously close to feeling like they're just kind of in a similar position to those late stage Giannis Bucks, where they're just kind of stuck with limited avenues of improvement. I see them rumored linked to DeMar DeRozan, and I'm like, you just lost your best point of attack defender, and you want to replace him with 37-year-old DeMar? Who's going to be your best point of attack defender then? I don't think you want to send Cam Johnson out on everybody's best player. So I don't know. Like the Denver Nuggets just seem to be trending in a really just purgatory-ish direction. And I don't know what to make of them right now. Mo, what do you make of the Denver Nuggets?
I think your description is really good. Purgatory, because I think that's where they're headed. They literally are in an identical situation as your Bucks were in. You have a transcendent player, but the surrounding pieces around him, a lot of them have either deteriorated or left the team. it's not the same team. Like I think when Denver won the title a few years ago, people thought this was the beginning of something. I think some people thought we're gonna have a run, and maybe they win 3 titles in a row, but maybe they'll win 2 titles in 4 years or something or other like that. And that's not been the case. You look at this from top to bottom, and then you look at Joker, as great as he is, where he's at in his career, his age, as he's getting older. I think the Nuggets are closer to the end in terms of this iteration in terms of people thinking they're title contenders than where they were before. I don't look at Denver as a title contender anymore. I look at Denver as, because they have a transcendent player who's capable of being dominated and winning a series, I think they have a puncher's chance in every series. But I'm only going to favor them in a series over inferior teams. Denver's not beating San Antonio in a series. They're not beating OKC in a series. I'm not sure they beat, and for whatever reason, they don't beat Minnesota in series anyway. Like, they can't beat them. Minnesota doesn't win titles, but they own Denver more times than not. I think the Nuggets literally they're going to end up doing what the Bucks, what your Bucks did. You're not one of the bigger markets, so teams don't look at Denver as, or players don't look at Denver as, that's the place to be or the place to go. I think Denver's in trouble. I think when you look at they just lost, like you said, a young, talented wing defender who could score also, that developed under you. You chose to let him go because you wanted to lowball him, because you didn't want to go into the whole thing about the second apron. You've made some mistakes. You overpaid for Christian Braun. That didn't work. The trade for Cam Johnson, at least year one, we would all agree that was kind of a fail. And then Jamal Murray, he looks like somebody who had this amazing kind of peak number 2, but he seems like he's been struggling as of late, last couple postseasons. I don't know the path forward for the Nuggets because they don't have a lot of valuable trade assets. A lot of people like Aaron Gordon, but nobody's going to trade you anything of value for Aaron Gordon because, one, Aaron Gordon, I believe he's either 30 or the other side of 30, and he's incredibly injury prone. You can't rely on him. He's a terrific player. The problem is he's not available enough. And it seems like every season, Brett, we get around to the postseason, who's hurt? Aaron Gordon. I think Denver's in trouble. I think the funny thing is, I think they're in trouble, but at the same time, I can't picture Joker in another team's uniform. I feel like he's the type of guy, and this is a very unique athlete. I could see he's the kind of guy that if he gets frustrated, he gets tired, he seems like the kind of guy that could walk away, not losing his sleep over it. You know what I mean? I don't see Joker being the kind of guy that's going to be on 3, 4, 5 teams. I don't see him doing that. He may allow a trade to go to another team, but he's not going to go the Shaq route or Melo route or whatever you call it, where he plays for 5, 6, 7 teams. I wouldn't be surprised if he got frustrated with what Denver's around him and just decided, I'm just going to go home and be with my horses. I'm good. I've made enough money. I'm good. I'm not chasing anybody. Nobody's ever going to question my greatness. I've already won a title. I've already won multiple MVPs. I'm good. And nobody looks at the Nuggets and go, well, the reason why they're not very good is it's never because of Joker, because you can't blame Joker. I just look at Denver in a Western Conference, Brett, where everybody else that's a significant challenge to them has gotten better, and they didn't. And that's the part that has to be frustrating if you're a Nuggets fan. OKC just stood pat for the most part, but they could do that because of the depth that they have. San Antonio stood pat for the most part, except for one move, but it's weird, right? Didn't they basically replace Harrison Barnes with a better version of Harrison Barnes, right? Isn't Tobias Harris just a better Harrison? He's just Harrison Barnes with a different name. Same guy though. But they didn't need to make a major move. I thought Denver had to make a splash move. They made a splash move, but it was a negative splash move. They traded Peyton Watson and for capital and stuff like that. But what did they get in return that can immediately have an impact and help Joker compete for a title? They didn't get that. They didn't get that in return. I just think the future's, if you're a Nuggets fan, the future is a lot of things. It ain't bright.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where they're like, well, we got a first round pick. I'm like, I don't like what Jokic is going to be 35 when that first round pick conveys. Like, unless you're using that in a different move to bring in a different star, I don't care. I'm always of the notion of if you have a generational player, go for it. You're not going to get another Jokic in your lifetime. Like, or even in your like grandchildren's lifetime, they're not going to see another Jokic. So you have the guy here now.
No.
Like, you got this first. All I'm saying is, I better see that sucker on the move, because like I said, I really hate the idea of. That's one thing I'll give John Horst credit for. Like, around Giannis, he continuously attempted to make moves. They didn't work at the end, but at least he kept trying. I'll give him all the credit in the world for that.
He did try. Facts. You have to give him credit for that. It was not for a lack of trying.
No, absolutely. Say Murray has a lot of responsibility for where the Nuggets are today. Yeah, absolutely. But by the way, we mentioned the Timberwolves earlier.
Facts. He does. He bears a lot.
By the way, Mo, we mentioned the Timberwolves earlier and international play. Did you see Rudy in international play? That man busted out a blow-by one-handed hammer on the Serbian national team, and I was just dumbfounded. I'm like, Rudy has a face-up game now, or something I'll always love about international play is when the international play nuts.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that Rudy's been holding back. He's got a bigger bag than we realized. Like Rudy's got some bag to him. He's got a little showmanship to him. Yeah, look, I'm excited this season for the Timberwolves only because of the potential of the what if, right? I know what Rudy brings to the table. I know what Jaden Daniels brings to the table. You know what you're going to get from Ant. I'm just curious, can LaMelo fit into that system, into that culture that's been successful? They've been a perennial contender the last few years, but they just didn't have enough to quite get over the hump. I want to see if LaMelo Ball can be a difference maker on a winning basketball team.
I think the idea is just very clear what they're going for. It's, we got to get through Wemby. You're not going to get through Wemby with Julius Randle's play style, which is kind of around in and around the basket, shooting middies. So what do? You swap him out for LaMelo Ball, who is more of a three-point shooter. You want to see if you can beat the Spurs and Wemby with three-point shooting, and hope the variance falls in your way, which is obviously a very risky strategy because we've seen teams kind of lead more into three-point shooting. But at the same time, we've also seen it just backfire on a lot of teams because all it takes is one series where, the ball don't roll your way and you're in a world of trouble. But like I do like the idea because at the end of the day, if you have to go through Wemby, you're not going through him by attacking the paint time and time again. Say we watched Brunson beat Wemby by taking him out to the perimeter and doing all the damage over there. See if LaMelo can.
And I'll give Brunson all the credit in the world. LaMelo's, let's be honest. I don't care about his potential. I don't care about talent. I don't care that he's younger. LaMelo Ball is not Jalen Brunson. He's not that good a basketball player. He might be more talented, but he's not as good he's nowhere near the basketball player.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it just feels like that they're going to go to try to recreate that. Like, let's bury San Antonio and even the Thunder with Chet. Let's bury them under a barrage of threes and deep balls and see if we can put them away that way. Because, yeah, it's great as their core was that made multiple Eastern Conference, Western Conference finals. That seemed to be the ceiling, which is a fine, place to be. But at the same time, if you want to win the finals, you got to take a chance. And well, they took their chance, and we'll see if it works. Let's see if LaMelo can be a major contributor on a championship team, which I believe in him. Like I said, I feel like the right coach can curb his shot selection a bit.
I feel like the LaMelo Ball situation in Minnesota, I don't think there's a middle ground. It's either going to work really, really well and make them title contenders, or it's not going to work well at all. And they're going to struggle outright. I don't think there's a middle ground. It's either going to work really well or it's going to be like the Titanic. I don't think there's a middle ground.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd say, yeah. And by the way, Mo, with that James Harden contract too, I wanted to touch
Maybe
on that.
LaMelo can get Lonzo over there too. He can get Lonzo over there too because Lonzo needs a job.
At that point, I feel like that's just like Giannis bringing like Thanasis over. Lonzo just has no legs left. I love Lonzo. Great story, but I don't think he helps the Minnesota Timberwolves at all next year.
I do too.
Yeah, it sucks.
I was rooting so hard for him last year when he started the season with the Cavaliers.
And I thought it was a great signing at first, but then obviously the game started going on. I'm like, oh, his legs are cooked. He can't keep up with anyone. Oof. Yeah, and it's unfortunate with Lonzo because if you remember, right before he suffered that last leg injury that really knocked him out, he was wheeling and dealing with the Chicago Bulls. He actually had the Bulls, first in the, Eastern Conference, which, that's a team effort, but that really, none of that worked without Lonzo Ball just setting everybody up. And that was shown after he went down with that injury. That whole Bulls team just kind of fell apart because they didn't have a real distributor at that point. So it's just unfortunate to see what happened with Lonzo. I wish that, the Wolves would sign him and he would have a, second wind, a great career as a bench piece. That would be awesome for him.
Yeah, look, and that's the thing. I'm one of those kind of fans. I'm not asking nothing crazy like Lonzo's going to turn around and go to 6 straight All NBA, or make 5 All-Star teams or something like that. But why can't he? And this is the beauty of sports because we've seen it before. How come he can't have a Sean Livingston like finish to his career? Right? You know what I mean? You're not a star, but you play meaningful minutes and you help a team win. I think that's big, and I wanted that for him. But like you said, from what we saw last year, his legs look completely shot. You can't be a perimeter player with no legs. You could be a power post player if your game isn't about lift, but more about leverage and footwork. But he has nothing in his legs, man. Like, it's crazy that all those injuries just robbed him of any athleticism. And I want him to have that kind of Sean Livingston comeback, but it doesn't appear that that's going to happen because I've heard nothing about anybody signing him or interested in signing him or working him out. And maybe what he's doing is getting with his team and trying to make sure he's 100% healthy before he attempts to come back or work out for somebody.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's what made, I think he actually brought up why it worked with Sean Livingston. It just like Sean Livingston's game made it work because like all those leg injuries zapped all the athleticism and everything out of Sean Livingston too. But Sean Livingston had such a redefined post up mid-range game that like it didn't matter. Like he could, as long as he got to within like 10 feet of the basket, he was catching that. And there was nothing you could do about it with his height. So it really feels like that would be the key for Lonzo. He would just have to develop some sort of counter, whether that be like a post game or a pull up midi, because exactly defenses would be like, well, chase Lonzo off the 3-point line because he's never been a good mid range shooter.
Right.
So the real question for Lonzo would he just be. Can he at least develop a counter? And even if it's just like, hey, can you consistently knock down a 15-foot midi? That would go a long way for Lonzo, I think. It's really, that's my concern. Can he develop a counter when they chase him off the 3-point line?
Agreed. Look, I'm rooting for the kid. I always root for the underdogs. This guy's been through a lot. So yeah, I hope that we haven't seen the last of him. I hope he's able to resurrect his career some kind of way.
No, absolutely. And Mo, am I the only one that found the James Harden contract kind of wild? I know we touched on it earlier, but it really, I thought 2 years and 70 million, like 35 a year would have been whatever, but that third year and a player option, to me, I'm just like, oof. Ooh, that player option's getting accepted. 32 mil for 39-year-old James Harden. Oof, that's not going to go well.
Cleveland did that to themselves. They put themselves over a barrel when they committed to acquiring him by trading Garland. It gave Harden all the power. The Cavs could easily just go, well, we didn't win. James didn't play great in the playoffs. Let's just let him go. The only problem with that strategy is who you replacing him with, because they don't have an upgrade on the bench. The next man up, they ain't got a next man up. They can't let him go. That's the sad part. So they had to overpay him. I wouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. If I'm the GM, I would have been closer to what you just said. I probably would have been lower. My offer to him would have been like 2 years, $50 million. Because I think that's a ton for a past his prime perimeter player. I can't call him a point guard or a two guard. He's kind of a combo guard. But we've seen the James Harden movie for 17 years. And it's always phenomenal during the regular season. And then it's the Titanic in the postseason. Why do I think it's going to end any differently this year?
Yeah, like I said, when the offseason started, I was thinking like 2 years, 60 or something like that, just somewhere in the like $30-35 million range. So it's funny because it feels like the dollar amount is fine. Like I think it comes out to like 32 or a little less than 33 a year. It's really just that third year in the player option that I keep side-eyeing. Like, now why would you go and do that to yourselves? I don't think James Harden's game ages well enough, like a Steph or like a KD, that at age 39 it's really going to be worth it. So it'll be interesting to watch, though. I do hope he wins a title with Cleveland. That would be a fun story. It won't happen, but hey, that'd be fun.
It would be.
I'd say, and I know we kind of talked about this before, but I just saw the comments before we went on live, and they were interesting, Mo. I did not think that Klay Thompson would be in IG comment sections defending himself over Ray Allen. That is a funny question. That is kind of funny. So obviously the debate was, for anybody who didn't see, peak Klay Thompson or peak Ray Allen, which one you taking? And Klay went into the comment section, started defending himself. It's kind of a great read. But yeah, I think Mo would agree with me on this one, but I think the answer is just very clearly Ray Allen. Like I think there's actually a pretty decent gap between Klay Thompson and Ray Allen.
Yeah, I mean, the gap is like an obvious gap, and I kind of touched on it before we started the show. Here's the clear gap between the two. Ray Allen passed his prime when he was just a catch and shoot player, primarily a catch and shoot guy. That's Klay Thompson in his prime. You know what I mean? Like when Ray Allen was past his prime, he was Klay Thompson. Now, if you wanted to say if they played a game around the world, who's the better shooter? It's probably Klay Thompson. But who's the better basketball player? It's not close. It's Ray Allen. Klay Thompson can't create shots. He can't get it. He can't create for himself. He is reliant on other people. He has never been a number one option. If you made Klay Thompson the number one option and there was no Steph Curry, we would never talk about Golden State because they would never be in the playoffs. He's not. You can't make Klay Thompson a number one option. I don't care Pete Klay or not. If he's your best player and you build everything around Klay Thompson, you ain't going to no playoffs. You're gonna live in the lottery. He's not that dude. I love Klay, but let's be realistic. A big part of his greatness is the draw coming off of Steph's greatness. Klay Thompson, you chasing Steph Curry all over the place, and he's breaking down defenses. Guess who's wide open? Because they don't do that. It's Klay Thompson. When they talk about that infamous, that famous game where Klay scored like what he scored 60 points, and he only took like what did they say? He took 5 dribbles or something like that.
Yeah,
that's not that okay, but that's not a testament to his greatness. That's a testament to his greatness as a shooter. But him being able to do that is a testament to Steph's greatness. Whose ass is wide open to they can do that? You have to be wide open to where you can just catch and shoot and do that. You're wide open for a reason, because the guy that's truly great, that's the guy that draws people. I'm not here to tell anybody that Klay Thompson's not a Hall of Fame player. He obviously is. But at some point, because we always do this as sports fans, we start talking about the greatest shooters of all time. Well, Klay's in that conversation. But when you start talking about the greatest 2 guards of all time, off the top of my head, at best, he's 10th. And that's at best. I haven't even gone through all the 2 guards off the top of my head, but I think at best he would be 10th. And he might not be in the top 10. Not when you start thinking about all the 2 guards over the course of the history of the NBA. I'm sorry. Klay's been terrific. But are you taking him over Clyde Drexler? Nope. Over Dwayne Wade? Of course not. Jordan and Kobe, come on. You already know what it is. And so then you start thinking about the guys that might be a beat below, right? Is Klay better than Joe Johnson? He certainly had more success. But again, if I'm going to use the logic of just going, well, he's won more titles and yes. But if you replaced Joe Johnson with Klay Thompson in 2008, when they took on the Celtics in the first round, the Celtics win that series 4-0. Completely different series. Klay Thompson he's not breaking Paul Pierce's ankles. He's not cutting up Tony Allen, who, by the way, nobody cuts up Tony Allen, but Joe Johnson does. I'm just saying, I want to rank and honor Klay as a great player, but we can't overrank him. We can't overrank him. I saw him defend himself and said, don't forget, I was a second option on 2 championship teams without Kevin Durant. You were. That's fair. You were also the third option on 2 championship teams with Kevin Durant. And what is Ray supposed to say in his prime? Because we're taking your peaks. Well, in his peak, Ray Allen was the best player on his team. He was a number 1 option. Klay Thompson was never a number 1 option. It's just not a catch and shoot guy. The only catch and shoot guy that I know that could pull that off, maybe, it would be Reggie Miller, who has a much quicker release than Klay Thompson. If Reggie Miller played in the modern NBA and he's taking 11 threes a game with the way he moves in his quick release, maybe he could still be a number 1 option. I'm not trying to kill Klay. I'm just simply saying there are levels to this. Let's say the obvious. I think Klay's a better shooter than Ray Allen, not a better basketball player. He's not breaking nobody off the dribble. He's not dunking on anybody off the dribble. Those are things that Jesus Shuttleworth, aka Ray Allen, could do on a regular basis in his peak. I guess a lot of people forget that because they're just remembering Ray Allen from the Celtics or Ray Allen from his final couple seasons in Miami. That's not Ray Allen. That's closer to being Klay Thompson than Ray Allen.
It really feels like that kind of the big difference between them is Ray Allen just had multiple counters off the dribble. Like, he could put it on the floor, he can get to the basket, he can pull up for mid-range. Klay's big counters were just mainly a 1 dribble pull up. He really had that post fade that he liked over smaller defenders. But a lot of his counters were still like difficult shots. Like, unless you gave him a free line drive to the rim, he really wasn't going to the rim a ton. So that's kind of, to me, what the biggest difference between someone like Ray Allen and Klay is. It's okay, if I chase Ray Allen off the 3-point line in his prime, I have to worry about him getting all the way to the rim, dunking on me. Or he can, pull up, shoot a midi. Like, there's just multiple things I had to worry about. With Klay, if I accidentally overcommit to him, it's like, oh, okay, he's probably going to just settle for a 15-footer, or maybe try to do a reload three, which I could, take a step back and contest. Probably not. Clay's a very tall guy, but it just feels like that there's less avenues for counters with Clay, whereas Ray just had more bullets in the chamber, and it was harder to figure out what he was going to do next.
I had a quick question. It just came to me. Paul George, peak Paul George, the very best version of Paul George. Is Paul George at his peak? Is Paul George better than Jaylen Brown, who's currently at his peak? It's fun. Somebody brought that question up, and in the heat of the moment, I was getting ready to say, no, Jaylen Brown's better than Paul George. But then I had to think about it. The best version of Paul George. I don't think Jaylen Brown's better than the best version of Paul George. I don't. I think, because I know what somebody's going to say. They're going to, well, Jaylen Brown won a title and he won a Finals MVP. You can't deny that. He certainly has had more success, but his peak. But even when he won Finals MVP, he didn't lead the team in scoring. He didn't lead the team in rebounding. He didn't lead the team in assists. That was Tatum. Jaylen Brown just won Finals MVP. I think that's a good question. Is the best version of Jaylen Brown, which would be right now Jaylen Brown, is that guy better than the best version of Paul George?
I'll give you my definitive answer. No. I think peak Paul George is actually probably a step above Jaylen Brown. Peak Paul George, yes, obviously he didn't win a title or anything, but peak Paul George, obviously we know 2019 he's top 3 in MVP voting with the Oklahoma City Thunder and top 3 in Defensive Player of the Year. Right. Then 2 years later, Kawhi goes down with an injury. We think the Clippers are cooked until Paul George carries them to their first ever Western Conference Finals, as the guy.
He did that. He did that.
I think Jaylen Brown's a great player, but I don't think he's as great as PG was on an individual level as a player. I think Paul George is a step or two above him. I think Paul George is much better at creating easier looks for himself. I think he's a much better defender. He had very good hands. I think you can give Jaylen Brown like maybe a rebounding edge. And you can argue that, JB maybe a better, tough shot maker out of isolation. But I feel like PG's tighter handles helped him create easier looks. He was a better defender, and he could still hit tough shots himself. So it just feels like that Jaylen Brown is good, but peak Paul George was just a step above what peak Jaylen Brown is right now.
Yeah, and I'm only bringing that up because we almost forget sometimes, right? Because it's easy looking at that trade going, the Sixers won that. Well, yeah, they won that because they have the best version of Jaylen Brown, and he's a full, I want to say 7 years younger. But if Paul George was 30 years old, they were both age 30, I don't think anybody would say the Sixers won. They might actually ask, why would you make that trade? You know what I mean? Like, I like Jaylen Brown, and I'm with you. I think he's great. But I think people forget just how talented Paul George was at the peak of his powers. Jaylen Brown wasn't that naturally talented. And to his credit, he certainly worked on his handle, and his handle has gotten a lot tighter. But Paul George's handle was always tight. It's still fairly tight now. I think Paul George almost gets disrespected or underrated because he hasn't won a title. But in a league that talks a lot about successes, team success, or individual success, that's the only thing Paul George hasn't won. He's made multiple All-Star teams, multiple All-NBA teams, multiple All-Defensive teams. Like, I think as great as Jaylen Brown is, I think I'm with you. I think Paul George, the best version of Paul George, at least to this point, is better than the best version of Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, and I feel like with some of these older players too, I agree, Howard, PG is better. I think with some of these older players too, I feel like that a lot of guys, people just don't go far enough back into their careers, right? They'll talk about Paul George now like this is the Paul George he's always been. Like, no, go to 2019, go to 2021 with the Clippers. Or even further back, you can go point to his early wars with LeBron James against the Miami Heat when he's on Indiana.
Yeah.
Like I feel like sometimes with these players, people just don't go far back enough. So they think the peak version is just like the most recent version they've seen. It's kind of like when people talk about Ray Allen, for example. Oh yeah, Ray Allen on the Celtics, Ray Allen on the Heat. Like we're still like
Right.
5 years out from his best version in 08. Obviously in 03 is, his Sonic years, and then you go to 01 for his Bucks years. It just feels like with some of these star players, and they do the same thing too with Kevin Garnett. They'll be like, yeah, Garnett of the Celtics was really good. Yeah, but what if I told you 4 years ago he won an MVP in Minnesota and he was even better? It just feels like with some of these star and superstar players, some guys just don't go back far enough in analyzing their career. Like, no. Like this current version of PG or even 2021 PG was not the best version of PG. Go back a little further, please.
Right. Yeah, I wish more people would do that with a lot of these older players. We do need to give guys like Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan their flowers. You're catching the back end of their careers and they're still playing in the league, but this is clearly not the best versions of either one of those players. You got to remember, Kyle Lowry turned himself into a perennial all-star. He didn't come in with all that fanfare, but he went from those times in Houston and went to the Raptors and became not one time, not two time, but I think he's like a 5 or 6 time all-star. He did that. DeRozan did that. We I guess because when you're in the league 12, 15 years, people just get caught up when they look at just your recent work instead of the entire body of your career, your entire body of work. And I wish more people would pay attention to that, because a lot of these guys, their greatness kind of gets forgotten about.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And hey, you know what? I'll say, Mo, let's hope I'm kind of curious to figure out today we just had the sale of the Minnesota, well, not the sale of, but controlling ownership of the Minnesota Timberwolves and Minnesota Lynx for $4.5 billion. We got, something going on with the Lakers in selling their team, maybe for like $12.5 billion, maybe not at this point. We'll see what happens in the civil war between Jeannie Buss and the family there, but yeah, a lot of teams teams in the same offseason. Selling a little bit, but yeah, that Lakers thing, I don't even know what to make of that, because first they're selling, then Jeannie's going to fight them because her brothers kicked her back in, which wouldn't be the first time that the family has had drama like that. Yeah, that whole thing is just, I feel like that's going to drag on into the regular season, which, by the way, remember, Luka only signed a short-term extension, so this could be problematic.
That's right. Yeah, look, if I'm a franchise player like Luka, I'm looking at the people above me and going like, what are we doing over there? Like, is leadership stable? Like the Lakers of all franchises has been sold twice in 2 seasons. That's kind of crazy to me. And now they're saying to sell that maybe the guys Kushner and I forgot the other guy's name, they might not have enough money, or there's a holdup. But there's always something. I thought this was going to be the quiet off season for the Lakers, right? LeBron left. He did it real quietly. We did what we did in free agency. I'm like, now we'll just see what the product is, and then you still have some kind of drama no matter what. And it's not just the sale of the team. Then you find out that the family went behind Jeannie's back and they sold their controlling what they have left, their shares. They wanted to sell their shares as well, and apparently she wasn't notified. And so, yeah, I guess it's a typical Lakers off season because there's always some kind of drama.
No, that's fair. And hey, before we get out of here, Mo, I wanna give a quick shout out. Kelsey Mitchell set the record for most points scored in a single season in franchise history for the Indiana Fever this year. Something that was just brought to my attention. So, hey, shout out to Kelsey Mitchell, man. She's been balling. That Fever team is dangerous.
I keep telling people, if they can play with the pace they want to play at, they're going to be a problem, because Kelsey's a bucket. Cece's a bucket. Aaliyah Boston's a bucket. Like, and they've got a couple solid role players too, Cunningham and company. So I don't think they should be favored, but they're going to be a tough out for anybody.
Yeah, it feels like Cece's real superpower is just her playmaking half the time. Her and Mitchell have developed this great chemistry together, and those two are so much fun to watch. I believe Kelsey Mitchell's a free agent after this year, so I'm hoping something gets done there because, man, it would be kind of disappointing to break these two up so quickly into their tenure here.
Nah, I'm with you, especially because of the chemistry that they've developed. That backcourt to me is one of the best backcourts in all the league. It's not even close. And then throw in what Aaliyah Boston gives you. Like, Indiana's got to find a way to re-sign Kelsey Mitchell. They got to keep that trio together.
Yeah, I'd say I think the real move for the Fever will just end up being either trade or after next year, Lexi Hall's contract's up, and I think she's more closer to a vet minimum contract than what she's making right now. So I think it'll help their books a lot once they kind of knock her down and get her contract from the $800,000 that she's making to like the $350,000. So let's say I'm sure they'll keep her around. I just think that that next contract they got to make sure to get the numbers a little lower because it's great having a big three, but with the WNBA salary cap where it is, paying three ladies like, $1.5 million or $1.4 million each it's a tough ask when the salary cap's only at 7. So they'll have to consolidate some money somewhere to really make it work to fill out the rest of their depth. So it's a big offseason here for the Indiana Fever, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, Eddie, anything you want to add before we get up on out of here, Mo?
No, just fun. Chopping it up on a Friday in the afternoon, talking hoops. The crew showed up, dropped in some comments. We appreciate you guys for joining us. And I'm always excited for the next episode of M1. So appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. And you know how it is. Next week, we'll make sure to, bring you and one and Meaty Boys. I'll get to update you on more of my wrestling adventures on Meaty Boys. Hey, next week will be 4 weeks into training, so a month. So it'll be a fun 1 month update. I'm looking forward to keying you guys in on all of that. So until next time, we thank you very much for tuning in and have yourself a great night.